Mēs jau iesākām šeit iepriekšējā uzrunā runāt par situāciju, piemēram, Rīgā, kā mums īsti ir ar vietām, kurās var patvērties ārkārtas situācijām. Un Somijas patvērtņu sistēma esot izcils piemērs, kā pārbaudīt risinājumu var kļūt par drošības standartu. Un tad stāsts būs par inovācijām, kas glāb dzīvības, kas ir tas, ko mēs no Somijas varētu mācīties. Vecākā lektore Somijas Lietišķo zinātņu universitātē ir mūsu viešņa. Viņa runās par drošības risinājumiem krīzes situācijās un efektīvu patvērtņu sistēmu un Somijas piemēru. Lūdzu, sagaidiet Anja Aatsinki. Anja, welcome!
Thank you. Hi everyone, and nice to be here to talk about a really topical issue. And as you may have noticed, the Finnish civil defense shelter system has been under a lot of global interest last years. And actually, right now, if you have noticed from the news, the President Zelensky is now visiting in Helsinki. And actually, yesterday, they made an agreement that we are going to support Ukraine building their own civil defense shelter system. So, this is a quite wide topic, and I tried to pick up some interesting parts that I think that everyone should take into notice when considering these issues. And I'm, as said, a senior lecturer in Laurea University of Applied Sciences, and I teach safety, security, and risk management there. And my background goes to Helsinki City Rescue Department, where I used to work approximately 9 years, first as a fire inspector and then as a chief fire inspector, and few years as a fire chief responsible for our accident prevention services. So the first we start with the history. So people sometimes ask that how did you build up this kind of system? So the reason is we started rather early. So the development of our shelters, it actually began in the beginning of the 1930s. But then, because of the war, the construction obviously became really difficult. And these shelters that were built back then, they mainly protect people for shrapnels and as bomb shelters. But they didn't have any like the ventilation systems and stuff like that. But the end of the 1950s, we had new legislation and the construction began again. And these were more modern, but we would say that from the beginning of the 70s, we have had these modern shelters which have more developed ventilation system and filtration, and obviously more equipment. But basically, all shelters from the beginning of 70s, they are considered as modern. Of course, the systems nowadays are more developed than back then, but still. Currently, we have approximately 50,500 shelters, and we have a place for 4.8 million people. And our whole population is somewhat 5.6 million. And from those, a little over 4 million people live in some kind of urban agglomeration. So basically, all the people who are living in bigger cities, they have their place in the shelters. And all these modern civil defense shelters, they protect protection against explosion and building collapses and such. And if the special filter is used, also against hazardous materials and substances. But I think one of the most important things that why our system is in such a good condition is that all the shelters, they have some sort of different use for the normal times. So they are not just like bunkers which are locked and someone takes the keys and opens it for the first time in the decades, but they serve as metro stations, sports halls, and whatever, like the parking garages, swimming pools, etc., etc. And smaller shelters, they usually are as storages in residential and office buildings. So this is a really important thing that we have like active use for these shelters every day. So they are not forgotten. Then we have like a different kind of shelters. So these big public civil defense shelters are mainly in the centers of the large cities, and they are meant for the people who live in the centrums, who work there, commute through it, do their everyday businesses around. So these are usually these large bunkers underground. Then we have shared civil defense shelters. These can be big or small, depending on the need there is. And these are usually like common shelters for residential properties and usually on the outskirts of the cities. So if the building doesn't have its own shelter, so there is like a shared shelter that all the people from the certain area, they go in if needed. And then the most shelters, they are these property-specific shelters. So this comes from the Building Act. So for example, if the residential building it exceeds 1,200 square meters, it must be built up, the shelter. And in the industrial and such buildings, if it's over 1,500 square meters, there must be a shelter. And this is a condition on a building permit. So basically, you can't avoid this. And I would take this as the second most important thing, that it's mandatory. You have to do it. If this would be voluntary, I would say that we don't have a system like this. And we have had times where there was a strong political will to stop building shelters. People were thinking that, okay, there's not going to be a war in Europe. Never again. We don't need this. Obviously, building these shelters, it costs a lot of money. So when you do like the risk-based assessment, okay, do we ever need this? How big is the risk? Do we want to spend all the money? So it's quite evident that that question arises that, okay, is this worth it? Do we need this? Now we can say that luckily there was decision makers and civil servants who fought for this system and made sure that it wasn't like ended. And now I think that there is no one who questions whether this is okay or not. But I would say that it needs to be mandatory. You need to have laws for building the shelters. Then we also have the possibility that if needed, the rescue services, they can order building owners to build up temporary shelters. But as said before, we have quite a good coverage, but still there is this option. But yeah, I think building obviously isn't enough. So maintenance and servicing, this is something that needs to be done properly. Obviously, I think we all understand that. But this is also dictated in law that owner of the building is responsible for the proper maintenance. So basically, you have to do the periodic inspection every 10 years, and that must include the leak test. So it has to be tested that the shelter can be overpressurized. And also, you have to do regular maintenance, usually annually. You check the functioning of the ventilation machine, you check that everything works and equipment is in good condition. Nobody, for example, stole the equipment. But I would say that one of the most important parts in this is the assessing whether the shelter can be ready for use within 22 hours. So as I said, these shelters, they serve a different purpose during normal times. So they are not ready to shelter people just to walk in and close the door and everything's that. So you need to do different kind of maneuvers to make it in operating condition. And in that sense, 72 hours might sound as a long time, but if the door doesn't work or the valves do not work and you have to go to the hardware store and try to find everything, obviously the time gets shorter all the time. Actually, the picture there, it's from my workplace, and it's a shelter inside our campus, and inside there is a kitchen and cloakrooms, restrooms, like that. And there used to be like an extra level on the floor, and the door itself was capsulated inside the wall. Obviously, for like convenience purposes, no dust. It looked more pretty and nice. But again, it made the checkups, and obviously, if we would need to take the shelter in use, it would make it more difficult. So during the checkups, they tear it down, and now it actually has a more convenient system that you can take away. But this is quite often you see that people think that, okay, we don't need this, we can take the door away and store it somewhere in the basement. But all things like this needs to be checked beforehand, so that there is like not anything extra to cause hassle. And also if anything else is wrong, the owner of the building has to do the corrective measures when needed. And I would say that in general, this part is in quite a good shape. That people take care of these periodic inspections, they look after the shelters, they check that the equipment is fine and so on. Because this is, again, mandatory by law. But what I think that would be something that I think that we should concentrate more is the training and knowledge, how to actually operate these. And currently, we don't have like specific like requirements for the persons doing these inspections and such. And I wouldn't say that we even need that one. It's not like rocket science. And I would say that each and every one of us could do the annual checkups and the leak test if we just have the proper instructions. But I think that the problem is if we have instructions that say that someone is taking care of this. And we used to have in our previous Rescue Act over 10 years ago, we had a quite clear statement that people who own the building, they need to designate person to do, for example, these maintenance checks, and who is also responsible for putting up the shelter if needed. And that designated person that should do the certain training for that. We got a new Rescue Act in 2011, and in that they changed it so that the owner of the building is responsible that everything this happens. Basically, that's enough, of course. But if the owner of the building doesn't know their responsibility and how to actually do this, it might be a wrong way to go, so to say. And basically, you can fill in the demand of the legislation by that you have instructions, and you instruct that, okay, anyone from us goes there and does all the maneuvers if needed, and there are the instructions. And this is something that is outsourced a lot, the checkups and so on, but that is something you really need to assess how this works if there is a crisis situation. Can you rely that there is, for example, a maintenance company that comes and puts everything in order? I would say that no, you cannot trust that. You need to have the persons on site who know how to operate this, how to put this on operating condition and take care of everything. Usually these measures related to shelters are described in emergency plans. And it all boils down to the self-preparedness. And as in our legislation, as I think that appeals to every legislation in this field, we have so that the measures for self-preparedness, it also needs to be described how they are taking care in emergency conditions. So basically, when we are talking about residential buildings, it means that it's the operations linked to the civil defense shelters. So the user manual, it can be a separate document, and there can be a separate plan, for example, for the deployment. And this is something I think that is the thing that we need to consider the most at the moment, that these are in good condition, that we actually have good plans, people know who is responsible for what. When Russia attacked Ukraine, obviously all the phone lines to the rescue department, they were blocked. I think we all share that experience, and people had loads and loads and loads of questions about civil defense shelters. How do we work there? How do we go there? Who has to empty the storages? Can I take my pet in? No, you cannot take your pet in. And all like these really practical questions, how to operate. So this is something that this deployment plan would need to answer, that how people actually do. Do they have their home supply kits ready and they can take them to the shelter and so on? And as I said, the technical issues, they are in rather good shape, and shelters are in okay condition. But all the others, like emptying the shelter, who is responsible for what, and is there like correct tools? We have had different kind of testing that what it takes to actually put these shelters to in operating condition, and always there are some kind of surprises that okay, there is some special tool you would need, but you don't have it. You have to go again to that hardware store and try to find it and so on. There is something really heavy in the basement and you need to take it away, and all the residents are elderly people. How do you actually do that? So these kinds of things need to be considered beforehand. Also the preparation of the shelter. You need to tear things down and you need to build up new things. And actual use, how you be in there. Where are the beds, who sleeps and when, and so on. Yeah, in here I took two new things as an example how our citizens prepare. I would say that even though we have a really strong tradition in preparedness and in the security of society and comprehensive security concept and all of that, we still, I think that we still needed some wake-up call with this, and now we certainly have had it. When I go back like 7-8 years, it wasn't so easy to talk about these things. It wasn't trendy, it wasn't like interesting, and people were, okay, you are just wishing some bad things to happen or something like that. We are not interested in that. But now, unfortunately, or luckily, how to view it, the situation is totally different. It's quite easy to talk about these things, and for people it's easy to understand why these are so important. So I encourage each and everyone to take this momentum in safety education, because now it's the time that we can highlight these issues without that we need to first try to win everyone on our side that why this is important. And obviously the emergency plans, and we have the same 72-hour concept too. So this has been there all the time, now more popular than ever, I would say. But then we also had a new preparedness guide. It was just published by the Ministry of Interior. So I think it's rather nice. It has like a basic information about basically every possible crisis situation there could be. And it's also in Finnish, Swedish, and in English. And of course, we have had loads of information in this field before, but I think this was like the most wide scale, and of course it was loads in media and so on. So people should know that we have this preparedness guide. And then the other example I lifted there is the vada application. Vada comes in Finnish. Preparedness is varautuminen, so there comes vada. This is an application that is meant for the people who are responsible for shelters. So it gives instructions how to do the maintenance and servicing, and how to actually deploy the shelter and how to operate there. There is also some interactive features that you can ask help from experts if needed. And this is something I hope that we can do some scientific testing also in the near future, that how actually is this effective, how does this help people. But these are the new ones. But I think that I could conclude with that even though you would have technically the most developed system in the world, and all the things in order in that sense, if you don't have the people who know how to operate, or first and foremost, if you don't have people who understand the importance of these kinds of things and the political will to uplift this in everyday discussions, then we basically have nothing. So I appreciate a lot our authorities' inputs in safety education. For example, our rescue services, they have like strategy that they reach each and every Finn certain times during their life and give some information so we can make sure that all the correct information is given. And now when we are living somewhat uncertain times, I would say that it makes it even more important that we have like the correct information. We don't fail to miss and disinformation, and we know how to act if there would be a crisis situation. So that model gives us courage, it strengthens our psychological resilience and all the good stuff. So with that, have nice tools and everything, and educate your people. And if you have anything to ask about our system, you feel free to approach during the conference. I'll be here whole day.
Aww.
So thank you.
Thank you, Anja. Any questions, please? Ja kādi jautājumi, lūdzu, rokas gaisā. Any questions? Questions. Microphone. Just use the opportunity to hold a microphone for a while. Yeah? Yes, that works.
Thank you so much.
Yeah?
It's okay. Is there an open questionnaire or an open list of the factors that if we want to evaluate some kind of a shelter, an old Soviet bunker or whatsoever, the right typical questions that we would, try to check them out, or a checklist?
To understand, is it ready?
Is there an open source on the internet or in this vada?
Yeah, you can find actually from the legislation the issues that needs to be checked, but then there is, I can try to find some links if...
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, paldies. Any other questions? Jautājumi? Questions? I have one question. How to find a balance? Because to develop this system, you need some urge, some feeling of danger. On the other side, you need a balance with that because you don't want people to panic.
Yeah.
So how do you measure that? How do you make sure that politicians understand that there should be something done, but civilians are not panicking?
I would say that for us, Finns, it's a bit easier because we have our history. And we know that basically something bad can happen.
But the new generation, do they know it? Do they have this feeling?
Yeah, actually, this would be like the whole new conversation, but in that sense, I'm a bit worried in general, young people, that how they feel, how do they feel like hope or something. For example, yesterday, actually, our president had a discussion with Zelensky, and they did it in the University of Helsinki. And one of the main points our president wanted to pinpoint there was the message for all the young people that there needs to be hope, and you need to concentrate on the good things also, and everything is not ruined, and so on. So I think that somewhat the balance comes that we also keep up the positive speech, and we take care that our young people, they don't feel depressed and they don't lose the hope for the future. So I think in public speech that is really important.
So, but are you saying that the message should be like this, that if we do this, this and this and prepare ourselves, then we'll be fine?
I would believe so, but there are like different point of views, because I've heard many times during my career that you cannot speak about the bad things. People get afraid, and
you shouldn't be speaking about bad things.
Yes, and but I believe, and luckily many other people also believe, that if you prepare and if you have the system and you know that it most probably will work, that brings that resilience, and you know that even though there would be a big changes, you can handle those big changes. So you don't need to be afraid of that. But yeah, it's if I would have like a 100% good answer to that, I think I could have a really great answer.
Good luck, Anja.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Anja, and we have a little certificate for you as a thank you.
Oh. Thank you.
And a picture, please. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I have to be there. Thank you. Thank you very much.